welcome to the weekly show of Classroom Without Walls. And this is a sister show of Classroom Without Walls. This show is really inspired by my interview with Seth Godin. And on this show, I interview leading professionals, educators, parents, entrepreneurs, startup founders. We discuss, debate, and disrupt education so that we can future-proof the next generation. We were just having some technical issues. Sorry, we got started a few minutes late, but thank you so much for still joining us. And let me know in the comment section where you are joining us live from. We are live on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on YouTube, and Periscope. So let me know the social media platform and the geographic location you are joining us live from. And today, I have been so excited since Duncan said yes to me to be on my show. And we are going to discuss innovation, creativity, and how we can stay relevant and future ready. And I have the perfect guest for us, Duncan Wardle. And I have been following Duncan online, and quite a few of my friends in the social media space, in the education space, have been tagging me about your work. So really love what Duncan is doing. And just in case you don't know who this amazing gentleman is, so Duncan Wardle is the former VP of Innovation and Creativity from Disney, and he's also a 3-time TEDx speaker. My favorite one from Duncan is The Theory of Creativity, which I'm going to share the link in the comment section in a second. And Duncan spent 25 plus years at Disney, which is my favorite. I think everyone's favorite vacation place. And working on innovative and creative products. Many of those products, I think many of us are familiar with. But after 25 years at Disney with a very impressive record, and Duncan now is the owner of his own consulting agency called ID8, number 8. ID8, I love the name, which is a leading consulting firm in innovation and creativity all over the globe. And Duncan today is very busy keynoting, leading workshops in different countries, teaching others how to be innovative and how to be creative. So honored to have you on the show, Duncan, and welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. And so I want to get started with a very simple why question. What inspired you to become so passionate about innovation and creativity?
So when you were a little girl, you got a birthday present. It came in an enormous box. It was the biggest box you've ever seen. You unwrapped the gift, you took it out of the box, and what did you end up spending the rest of the day playing with? The box.
Right? My children are doing the same.
Right, and they play with it for days until you throw it out, and then they cry. Why? Because the box could be anything you wanted it to be. It could be a rocket ship, it could be a fort, it could be a castle, and then. So what age were you when you last saw the castle? Usually about the age of 6. What happens at the age of 6? We go to school and the teacher tells us it's just a box, and our creativity and imagination starts to collapse from a very, very, very early age. If you ask what children are really good at, you'll hear people say imagination, you'll hear people say play, you'll hear people say curiosity, and here's why these things are important. I'll try and articulate all three. Curiosity. Children are really curious. What question do they ask you? Why again? Because they're really good, because they know you lied the first time, and they're really good at getting to what I call the insight for innovation, that core consumer truth. Our data tends to stop at the first or second why. Our consumer insights research may go a little deeper, but children go to the 4th or 5th why. And why is this important? Here's why it's important. If you ask somebody your data, if you say, why do you go to Disney theme parks? People say, well, I go for the rides. Well, that is a capital investment strategy, which costs millions of dollars. But if you pause for a moment and act childlike, not childish, and said, well, why do you go for the ride? Well, I like It's a Small World. Well, why do you like It's a Small World? I remember the music. Why is that? Why is that important to you? I remember I used to go with my mum. Why is that significant? I go with my daughter now. What that person's just told you on the 4th or 5th why is the real reason she's visiting a Disney theme park. It has nothing to do with a capital investment strategy whatsoever, and everything to do with her personal memory, and nostalgia, which is a communication campaign. But if we stop at the first or second why, which we tend to, because we go to school, we get a job, and we're told there's only one right answer. So we stop asking that second or third why. So that's the importance of that one. If you ask people if they're encouraged to be playful at work, people will say no. And so we'll try this. Can I ask you to close your eyes for just a minute?
Yeah, we can also ask the live audience join us. We have quite a few people join us live from quite a few different countries. So yes.
Okay, so maybe they can type in the responses and say, keep your eyes closed. I'm going to ask you a question. I want you to answer me with the first thing that comes into your mind. Where are you usually, and what are you doing when you get your best ideas?
Taking a walk, and or like being outside, moving my body, and or having fun playing. Just like not at work, yeah.
So, right, exactly. We're going to hear playing, walking, jogging, drinking, waking up, falling asleep, commuting, painting. You can open your eyes, by the way. The only two words you never hear are at work. Well, that's a bummer, isn't it? Because we're paid to have big ideas at work. So now close your eyes again. Picture the last verbal argument you were in with somebody. You don't have to tell anybody about it. Those of you sitting at home, close your eyes too, and think about that last verbal argument you had with somebody. Okay, now open your eyes. The argument's over. You're angry at, let's say, Fred. You're like, Fred, I hate you. I'll never work with you again. You blind copied my boss on that email. And I'm so angry at you, Fred. I storm out of the office. I'm furious. I walk over to my local coffee shop. Maybe I get a cappuccino. I sit down. It's about 5 or 10 minutes after the argument is over. I'm beginning to relax. You're beginning to relax. What just popped into your head? The killer one-liner, that one perfect line that you wished you'd used during the argument. If I had said that. Oh, yeah, the perfect line. Oh, yeah, I should have said this. We never deliver the perfect line during the argument. It's always 5 minutes later. Why? Because when you're in an argument, your brain is very busy defending yourself. Guess what your brain looks like in the office? We're doing emails, we're doing presentations, we're doing PowerPoints, we're scheduling, we're talking, we're in a meeting, and we hear ourselves say, I don't have time to think. But the moment you gave yourself time to think, you stepped into the shower, you walked away from the argument, you came up with the big idea or the killer one-liner. Why does that happen? Why is it in the shower? Why is it 5 minutes after the argument? Because your brain is in fact 13% conscious, 87% subconscious. And there is a door, its official name is the reticular activating system, that operates between your conscious and subconscious brain. When you're in what I call busy beta and you're stressed at work, that door between your conscious and subconscious brain is firmly closed. But the moment you're playful, the moment you step into the shower, the moment you walk over to the coffee shop, that door opens just wide enough that gives you access to the other 87% of your brain. Every innovation challenge you've ever worked on, every industry you've ever worked in, every creative problem solver, it's all back there to serve as unrelated stimulus to help you solve a challenge. But when that door between your conscious and subconscious brain is firmly closed, you're working with 13% of the capacity of your brain. So how do I open that door without bringing showers to the office, which would be ugly and messy and not HR compliant?
Quite a few people mentioned shower, actually. Yes.
So, yeah, of course. So I run an Energizer, and an Energizer is just a fun activity, and all I'm listening for is laughter. It usually lasts about 60 seconds, and the moment I hear people laugh, I know I've opened that door just wide enough between their conscious and subconscious brain where they can have big ideas. Now, for those of you who typed in and said falling asleep or waking up, there's an expression called when the penny drops. It's that eureka moment when I've got the big idea. It came from Thomas Edison. He used to fall asleep at night on an armchair. He would put a penny between his knees, a tin tray on the floor. He would fall asleep. As he fell asleep, his muscles would relax. The penny would drop. It would hit the tin tray. It would make a noise, and it would wake him up, and he'd write down whatever he was thinking. And you could think, well, that's crazy. Why would I do that? Well, he had more inventions patented in the 20th century than anybody else. And so if you're one of those people that gets your best ideas when you're falling asleep or waking up, just keep a notepad by the bed so you can capture them, because we promised ourselves we will remember them in the morning. We never do. And it's about being playful at the right moment, and not being playful every minute of every day. But if you are playful at the right time, you're opening that door between your conscious and subconscious brain. Another creative behavior, I call it nurturing. And so I want to demonstrate, here's the challenge for all of us. The more expertise we get, the more experience we have, the more reasons we know why the new idea won't work. So we constantly shut it down. And so, so let's say, are you more familiar with Harry Potter or Star Wars? What do you like?
Star Wars a little bit better.
Okay, so
Yeah.
all right, so I'm going to come at you with some ideas for tonight's party. You and I have been given $100,000, so it's going to be one hell of a party. I'm going to come at you with some ideas. I want you to start your response each time with no because and tell me all the reasons you think we should not be doing this idea, okay? All the reasons you know you've ever heard. So, $100,000. We could turn this room into the Death Star.
No.
Because
people may not like it.
Okay. All right. I tell you what then. What if where are you based, by the way?
Philadelphia.
Ooh, you have an incredible Philharmonic Orchestra. What if we dressed the Philharmonic Orchestra as stormtroopers and we had them come in and we had Darth Vader conduct them using his lightsaber?
That sounds great to me. So, but I can't say that. I have to start with
no, because.
No, because like some people just don't love stormtroopers. Like, what if?
All right. Okay. I tell you what then. So, how about we all come dressed as Ewoks?
No, because it's going to cost too much money to buy the costume, and it's going to take too much time to get dressed. What if something got broken?
So, okay. So, what if we did an intergalactic food and wine festival?
No. What if we have some people underage?
Oh, fair point. Okay. How about some Darth Vader smoothies?
Oh my God, I'm ready out of nose. No.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Do you think our idea got bigger or smaller as we went along?
Oh, definitely smaller. Okay. Even on a like emotional state, I just feel like being rejected.
Well, here's the thing. We all know we know thousands of reasons why that I'll never get it past legal. This isn't a strategic brand fit. That's not the way we do things here. We tried that last year. We've all heard it. And so just suspend for a moment. I call it an expansionist session. And so what I want you to do is we're going to do exactly the same exercise. We've got $100,000 for tonight's party. It's a Star Wars themed party. I want you to start each of your responses this time with the words yes and come back to me with an idea. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what if we turned your room into the Death Star?
I love that idea. And yes, and we can even dress up with different costumes. We can bring some like really nice, well-decorated napkins and like flowers designed in Star Wars shapes.
Ooh, yes. And we could have a buffet themed with different menus from each of the different planets and galaxies.
Oh, yeah. We can divide the room into different sections. We can like divide it by age. And yeah.
Yes, and people they could choose the Rebel Alliance or the Force.
And we can have a competition, right? To select who is people come with their costumes, and we can select who is the best designer of their own costumes. We can have a little gamify a little bit.
So this time around, did the idea get bigger or smaller?
Bigger, expanding, expensive, for sure.
Exactly. You can always take a big idea and value engineer it down. You can never take a small idea and power it up. However, far more importantly, whose idea was it when we'd finished?
Our.
Bingo. The two simple words from the word of improv that give you the power to change the power of my idea to our idea. When you're pitching your boss, your client, your representatives, when it stays my idea, it's not going anywhere. The moment you transform the power of my idea to our idea is the moment you activate it towards execution. Two very simple words from improv. You don't have to use them every minute of every day, but take that first offer. When somebody throws out an idea, take it, and the first words out of your mind. So put your brain on pause for just a second and seek to understand the idea and use yes and. So here's an analogy I would give you. Let's say we were working for Pizza Hut and we were asked to drive incremental revenue in Q4. And somebody comes up and says, pink fluffy slippers. And you're thinking, oh my God, that's stupid. Don't say it. Just put your brain on pause for a second and say, why do you think it's pink fluffy slippers? Or didn't you know it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month? Oh, no, I didn't actually. Oh, well, we were thinking we're going to do the Screaming Hot Pink Pizza. In fact, we're going to call it the Screaming Hot Pink Pizza. And we'll have hot pink pepperonis, hot pink chilies, and 25 cents on the dollar goes to breast cancer awareness. And anybody who orders through Uber Eats gets a pair of branded pink fluffy slippers. And suddenly you're like, oh, wait a minute. That's a pretty good idea. But if you shut them down by saying no because, you would never know. Now, this idea may turn out to be a good idea or a bad idea. That's not important. If you shut that person down, they may have genius 2 minutes from now, 2 hours from now, 2 days from now, 2 weeks from now. You'll never know. because you shut them down the first time and they're not coming back in again. Remind yourself, if you tend to be somebody who's a reductionist and thinks of all the reasons why we can't do things, we've got quarterly results to meet, we've got to make business, but at the same time, just remind yourself, we are not green lighting this idea for execution right now. We are just greenhousing this idea together. And use yes and. You'll be amazed how quickly you can build a fully complete developed idea if the first two words out of your mouth are yes and. It also, have you ever been in one of those brainstorms where the idea is going all over the place and you're not really even sure what the idea is anymore? It's because we're yes-oring each other. So let's say we're working on Star Wars and I smile nicely and I go, yes. Or we could play golf. You know, well, wait, what happened to my idea? And so suddenly you're off at all these different tangents and you don't know what happened to the idea. If we say yes and as the first two words and you insist that people use yes and in an expansionist session, nobody's brain is quick enough. If I say yes and to Star Wars, my brain can't go to a different topic. I have to stay focused on the Star Wars idea. So it makes our ideas bigger, not smaller. It transfers power of my idea to our idea, and it enables you to stay focused on the same idea.
Oh, I love it. There's so many great points. Everyone is loving the tips, the exercise that you are doing with us. So I wonder if we can apply this also to like parenting with our own children, because my kids, they are constantly coming to me, hey, mommy, what if this, what if that, this, and that. And now as I'm reflecting on how I talk to my own children and definitely coworkers, I say no a lot. But with my own children, I definitely say no a lot. So how can we apply this yes and to our own parenting approach, I guess?
Sure. So there's a couple of tools I'll give you. One is called, it was created by a man called Walt Disney, believe it or not. I call it What If. It's about listing the rules of your industry or your challenge and taking one rule and choosing to break it by asking, what if that rule no longer existed? So for example, in today's coronavirus, I posted on social today, what if every single executive in the United States of America and around the world gave up this year's annual bonus and this year's shares? 1 year. Now, the average executive, 75% of their total package comes in their bonus or shares. What if we gave up 1 year's bonus and shares? How many of our employees' jobs could we save? Right? That's a very simple what if. But a more elaborate what if was created by Walt Disney during By the way, if anybody wants to share that idea, please share it because I'd love to see it happen. Everybody says that'll never happen. Why not? Why not? What if? What if it did? What if it did? Right? So Walt Disney used to, he created a film called Fantasia with Mickey Mouse, and it was set to classical music. And there were a couple of sequences during the film where he actually wanted to mist inside the theater during the scene where there was rain. He wanted heat pumped in during a scene where there was fire. And the theater owner said, no, Walt, too expensive. We would never do that. So Walt, step one, list the rules of your challenge. So he listed the rules of the movie industry. I can only see one movie at a time. I have to go to a theater. I must sit in a seat. I can't pause. I can't rewind. I can't participate in the movie. I must buy a ticket. I must watch the previews. I, Walt Disney, can't control the environment in which my guests experience my movie. And he said, well, what if they could? Well, that wasn't the more provocative and absurd your what if question, the further out of your river of thinking you will get and the bigger the idea you will solve. So he said, well, wait a minute. What if I take my movies out of the theater? Well, if I take my movies out of the theater, they couldn't be two-dimensional because they'd fall over. Well, what if I made them three-dimensional? Well, if I make them three-dimensional, gosh, I'd have to have people play the characters. Well, wow. Okay, well, if I had people play the characters, Cinderella couldn't live next to Jack Sparrow and Davy Crockett because people wouldn't be immersed in her story. Or what if I put her in her own land? Oh, wait a minute, I'll call it Disneyland. Boom, the biggest creative idea of the 20th century. Now, for those of you viewing, so a more recent example, I'm sure all of us used to go to Blockbuster Video. Well, the founder of Netflix, one of the founders, Reed Hastings, used the same tool to create Netflix. So he listed all that he had over $100 worth of late fees on Apollo 13. And he was tired of paying late fees, as we all were. So he listed the rules of the industry. I have to be kind and rewind. I never get the one I want on opening day weekend. I can only take 3 at a time. I must drive to a physical store. I must go during opening hours. I must pay a late fee. And he listed all the rules. And he said, what if there was no physical store? Well, that was an absurd suggestion in 2005. And he said, well, wait a minute. YouTube already existed. And at the time, they were only streaming amateur content. Well, what if I only stream professional content? Nobody would have to drive to a store. I'd be open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Everybody would get the one they want on opening day weekend. I'll cut the rental off at 24 hours so nobody has to pay a late fee. Oh, I know, I'll call it Netflix. In fact, I'll take my idea to Blockbuster 5 times. They'll turn me down 5 times and I'll take them out of business in less than 5 years. Now, it's very easy for a lot of people looking in to say, gosh, Disney and Netflix have unlimited resources. I could never do that. I respectfully disagree. Walt was bankrupt in 1940. The Bank of America paid for Disneyland, and Reed Hastings was working out of a garage in 2005. But I'll give you a smaller example to make it more tangible. Glasses that we drink out of, just regular water glasses. There was a company in Great Britain in the 70s that used to make glasses that we drink out of. And they noticed when they were being wrapped and shipped, the production wasn't as fast as they thought it should be, and there was too much breakage of the glasses. So they went down to the shop floor and watched their employees and listed the rules of their industry. 26 employees, conveyor belt, cardboard boxes, 12 glasses to a box, glasses separated by corrugated cardboard, glasses wrapped in newspaper, employees reading newspaper. So somebody asked the relatively provocative what if question, what if we poke their eyes out? Well, that's against the law and it's not very nice. But because they had the courage to ask the provocative what if question, the person next to him got out of their river thinking, he said, wait a minute, why don't we hire blind people? So they did. Production went up over 22%, breakage went down over 70%, and the British government gave them a 50% salary subsidy for hiring people with disabilities. So when you have a challenge, step 1, list all the rules, step 1 by 1 by 1 by 1 by 1. Step 2, take one rule and ask, what if that rule no longer applied? And come up with as many silly questions and ideas as you can in less than 120 seconds. The faster you do it, the bigger the ideas, because you'll stop yourself from thinking about all the ideas you can't do. And one of those what ifs will spark an idea that you can go and land. So that's one of the tools. Another tool, actually, I'll try this. I'll give you a couple of minutes to go, or a few seconds to find a paper and a pen. In fact, you could use the whiteboard behind you. Come on. Come on, get your pen out. Now, I don't have a pen and paper. So
I do. Everyone, we have quite a few people joining us live right now. Let's do this.
Okay, so
I'm just putting myself on the spot today.
No, why not? So we were asked to design a new retail dining and entertainment complex for Hong Kong Disneyland. In the room, I had 12 white male American architects over 50. That's called groupthink. So I invited in my naive expert. Who is a naive expert and what is their role? A naive expert is somebody who doesn't work for you and doesn't work in your industry. What does that give them permission to do that you can't? They give permission to ask the silly question that you can't ask because your peers are in the room. It gives them permission to throw out the audacious idea ungoverned by your politics, your turf, your hierarchy, your constraints. They won't solve the challenge for you, but they will say something that stops you thinking as you always do, what I call your river thinking, and help you think differently. So I'm going to close my eyes for a minute while I'm going to ask you to draw something, but I'm not going to look because everybody else can see. I'll cover my eyes so they know. I'm going to name an object. You have 7 seconds to draw this object. Okay, so get ready. Get up to the whiteboard. Come on, get your pen out. Okay, and then I'm going to close my eyes. So I'm going to look to you to tell me when you finished. Okay.
Okay.
So I would like you please to draw a house. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pens down. Okay, now I'm not going to look. I'm just going to describe your house and see how accurate I get it. Let everybody see your house. So I'm going to say that you only drew one door and you put it in the middle at the front. I'm going to say you drew probably 2 windows and maybe 4, and you maybe even drew bars over them. And I'm going to say that the roof is a triangle. So let's take a look.
Almost the only part is the roof, because I actually grew up in China. That's our roof. Triangle, like this.
So hang on. I invited into the room. Now I'll bet that 99% of the people at home drew the house exactly as I described it. The doors at the front, there's 2 windows with bars on, and the roof is a triangle. Why? Because our river of expertise tells us, all of our experience tells us that's what a house should look like. So you didn't even consider the options. So I invited into the room as my naive expert, and this is why you drew the roof differently. I had 12 white male American architects over 50. So I invited in as my naive expert a young female Chinese chef. So what did she draw? She drew dim sum architecture, which if you've never seen it before is a round bamboo dish that your dim sum would come in, a steamed pork ball, a steamed shrimp ball, and a little window with a Chinese lady waving out of the window. We all laughed when we showed each other our pictures because we all drew the same thing. And we realized we stayed in our river of thinking. She gave us permission to get out of our river of thinking and think differently and consider audacious architecture. Well, on the way out of the room, somebody slapped a Post-it note over her drawing and it said, dim sum architecture, distinctly Disney, authentically Chinese. 7 years later, the strategic brand positioning for the for the Shanghai Disney Resort became distinctly Disney, authentically Chinese.
I love
Now,
that.
but here's the thing, and here's what companies don't understand. We hire African Americans and tell them you should work on the African American business. We hire Hispanics and tell them you're going to work on his. We hire Asians and tell them you're going to. Nobody's ever walked into the room and told me, hey, you should only work on the old white men business, because I punch them. But here's the point. They miss the bigger point. Diversity is innovation.
I love that.
If somebody looks different to you, they think different to you. And if they think different to you, they can help you think differently.
Oh my God, I just love that. That's actually, I read so many of your blog articles, like TEDx talks, and that is my favorite line. Diversity is innovation. I think everyone have quite a few entrepreneurs, leaders. You really have to imprint that. That is so powerful because we think differently, and then you challenge the assumptions.
So I want to give you another tool. Can you wipe out the house, because we're going to do another exercise? Wipe out your house. Come on, step up, girl. Get on with it. Okay, so this tool was also created by a man called Walt, last name Disney, and it's simply by re-expressing the challenge is to stop you thinking as you always do and to help you think differently. So on the left-hand side of your whiteboard, could you write the word car wash, please? Okay, now, so you and I are going to go into business. And we are going to open in Philadelphia a car wash. And I want you to write down in less than 20 seconds the 4 essential things we must have in a car wash. Off you go. Okay. What must we put? So tell us them as you're writing them.
Well, we have to have people to wash.
Right? People, yeah. What else?
Like water supply.
Water, good. I can tell you're a teacher because you've got neat handwriting. So what else?
And I guess maybe some entertainment, like as people are having their cars washed.
Got it. Entertainment. Okay. What are the basics? What must we have in a car wash? We've got water. What else do we need?
Cloths to
cloth, yeah. So we've got water, cloths. What else?
Detergent.
Soap, yeah. Okay. Soap. All right, so that'll do. Now, on the top right-hand side, I'd like you to consider that us going into business, you and I, we're coming to Philadelphia, and you and I are going to open an auto spa.
Wow.
Right? An auto spa. Write the word auto above it, if you would, please.
Okay. So what did you say?
Auto, as in automobile.
Okay.
A-U-T-O. All right, so you and I are going to go into business. We're going to open an automobile spa. Now, what could we put in our spa?
Oh, maybe a water bed.
Okay, water bed, right? What else?
Like music.
Music, right? What else?
And food.
Food, yeah. What else?
Maybe people can come in, do entertainment and serve, like playing guitar, piano.
Okay, musicians. What else what would you find in a spa? What could we put in there?
Essential oils.
Essential oils, great. Essential oil. What else?
Like a painting, artwork.
Artwork. Okay, so you can stop now. So I said car wash. You went straight into your river of thinking and said water, soap, cloth. I re-expressed the challenge as an auto spa, which is essentially the same product, and you went waterbed, food, music, and essential oils. All I did was re-express the challenge to stop you thinking like you always think of what must go in a car wash and get you to consider what could go in an auto spa. Now, this tool was created by Walt Disney on July 17th, 1955, and he created a level of hospitality that's never been replicated or duplicated since, simply by re-expressing the challenge. He said, we will not have any customers come to our theme parks. We will only have guests. Now, think about where you go when you're treated as a customer, and think about how you feel when you're treated as a guest in your best friend's house. Not only that, he said we will not have any employees. We will only have cast members. They'll be cast for a role in the show. And with that, he gave us all a badge of honor. that everybody, I was privileged to work for Disney for 30 years. And you just went out of your way to be nice to people because that's what you did. Why? Because you were a Disney cast member. A friend of mine, his name is Hector Rodriguez, he's a boat driver at Epcot. He's worked there 32 years. And on the odd occasion, he comes over to the house. He comes bursting through the door. He's a jolly big Puerto Rican chap. And he said, you should see what I did for that guest today. And he'll have an enormous smile on his face. And he'll tell you about the smallest thing that he did. Why did he do it? Because Disney cast member. Because you bleed Disney. And so now, come forward to a business and say, well, how does that help me in my business? Well, in 2011, if we'd asked the question, how might we make more money? We could have put the gate price up by 3%, and we would have made our quarterly results. That's iteration, not innovation. But instead, we reversed the question. We re-expressed it. Instead of saying, how might we make more money, which is what businesses ask themselves every day. But Generation Z will see those businesses gone because they're still product-centric and they're not focused on their consumer. Instead of saying, how might we make more money, we said, how might we solve the biggest consumer pain point? Well, we all knew what the biggest consumer pain point was of coming to Disney: lines. So we used that what if tool again. We said, what if there were no lines? Didn't know how to do it. If you know how to do it, it's iteration, not innovation. So what if we had took away the front desk in our hotels and people didn't have to check in or check out? What if we took away the turnstile at the front of the parks and people didn't have to click through? What if people didn't stand in line for their favorite character meet and greets or their favorite attractions or to pay for food or merchandise? Didn't know how to do it. But guess what? RFID technology was around for 5 years before we invested in it. And now that an RFID technology enabled Disney's Magic Band, it is your room key. You touch and go. You don't check in or check out. It is your theme park ticket. There are no turnstiles anymore. You can walk straight into the parks and straight out. Has your reservations for your favorite character meet and greets and your favorite attractions each day. I can pay for an item of merchandise for it. I can pay for food with it. I could have my food. I walk into the restaurant I want. I've already saved my food on my smartphone. The food comes fresh to me at my table. Had we have asked how might we make more money, we'd have made 3%, as I mentioned. But by reversing the question, asking how might we solve the biggest pain point for our consumer, the average guest at Walt Disney World now has between 90 and 120 minutes free time a day. What has that resulted in? Record revenues. Record revenues on food and beverage. Record revenues on merchandise. No capital investment required in terms of new lands, no new infrastructure, obviously software, no new parades, no new fireworks shows. And then in terms of data, millions of people pouring through the doors every year, live crowdsourcing the future design of the products and services of the parks simply by telling the parks division what they like and what they don't. So I would encourage people to, instead of saying, how might we make more money, just flip the question and say, how might we solve the biggest consumer pain point?
Oh, it's everyone is just saying thank you for joining us live. Such a great mental shift. I also want to go back. You mentioned so many great points, Duncan. I love how you mentioned in so many of your talks and blog articles that as human beings, we're all born to be creative, to be innovative. But so much research has shown, and I also see this in my own undergraduate students, that as we grow older, our ability to be creative has yes, exactly. I will share a quick study, and I don't know how many of you guys follow Sir Ken Robbins. I really love him, a really great education, and he talks about the problem in education. Yes, and this is a very famous study. Yeah, I don't know if you guys, I hope you guys can see the screen. So it's about paper clips. And so he asked children, very young, 3-4 years old, how many ways can you use paper clips? And then it turns out all those kids, they are super genius, right? They scored 98% in terms of the number. And then 5 years later, the number decreased sharply to 50% as they become 8 to 10 years old. And then 5 years later, as they become teenagers, and they just become, quotation marks, normal, like us. So I found this to be really, really interesting. I see this in my own children, from being I don't know if I shared this one, but anyway, so from being really creative as babies to where we are today. So what happened? Why? Why did we lose that creativity?
Well, it's because we're told it's just a box, because we're told it's just a paperclip. And but if you think about it here, and this is, I think, certainly as we look across to the next decade, artificial intelligence is coming. Artificial intelligence, the editor of Wired magazine recently said, will strip away 20% of the jobs in North America in the next decade. Artificial intelligence will replace so many of the things we do as humans, what I call the left-hand side of the brain. It will replace data. It will replace analysis. It will replace accounting. It will replace finance. It will replace legal, all the stuff that can be programmed. And yet we are all born with an amazing ability to be creative. We all played with the box once. We're all born with an amazing imagination. We all have weird dreams that we don't want to tell anybody about. We're born with an incredible curiosity. We ask why, and why again. And in a moment, I'll tell you a story about the power of intuition, because we have 100 billion neurons up here, but we have 100 million neurons in our stomach. And if you think about the decisions we make every day, why you're wearing the clothes you're wearing right now, why you styled your hair that way, why we engage in the vast majority of brands and products and services we choose to engage with, we went with our gut. And here's the thing. In the next decade, as I mentioned, artificial intelligence will be able to strip away pretty much everything the left-hand side of the brain does. But I've spoken to 2 or 3 AI experts, and I've asked them, do you believe we will be able to program creativity, imagination, curiosity, and intuition within the next decade? And the answer I've been given from each of them is no. Therefore, the most employable skill sets of the next decade are, in fact, the ones we were born with.
I love that. So powerful. And like you talked about the river of change, which I think is such a brilliant concept. Also reminds me of another book, The Structure of Scientific Revolution. And Thomas Quinn makes a very similar argument, like every discipline has like baggage. So you are also a parent, and we are always learning something. We have knowledge. So how can we ensure the knowledge we learned is not detrimental to our creative thinking? So how can we kind of like unlearn what we have learned to to have that fresh perspective on things without going into that river of thinking?
Get down on the floor with your children and play. But really, it's about, so unlearning is about using the tools that I just described. It's the what if tool. It's the tool, re-expression tool. It's about bringing in a naive expert. It's about unlearning, because these things get you out of your river of thinking. And so these are a tool set, a toolkit that I've designed, if you will. Because people say, why did you leave Disney? You were there 30 years. You were in charge of innovation, creativity. Are you mad? Yes and no. 30 years is a long time. I got my bronze Jiminy Cricket thank you for 30 magical years of service statue. And I kind of looked at it and thought, man, I got to go do something else. There's this enormous gap in the market. All of our C-suites are standing up and our executives are saying, we need you to be innovative. You must think different. We must be brave. You must take risks. And we're all sitting there going, great. How do I do that? And nobody's showing people how. So all I've done is designed a toolkit that takes the design thinking process, the creative problem solving process, the innovation, and just boiled it down to make innovation easier for people, creativity tangible, and the process fun. And why do I say the word fun? Not hysterical fun. You can't change a culture by talking about it. You have to create a toolkit that your employees who work for you for 1 year or 20 years, these are good people, but they've been told they're not creative for so long, they don't believe they are. They don't think they can innovate. And it's about creating a very simple toolkit that they choose to use when you're not around. That is culture change.
Oh, wow, I love that. Do you mind sharing a little bit besides the what if? I know you also have energizers. So give us a few examples that you include in your toolkit with us.
So let's see, what if, where else? Let me see, we've done what if, we've done re-express it. So let's do intuition, the power, it's a creative behavior. By the way, I believe creative, and we talked about playfulness earlier on. We talked about curiosity earlier on. So this one's intuition. Intuition is a much more powerful tool than we think it is. We tend to rely very heavy reliance on data, and we should, and data is getting better and better and better, but data can only go so far. And sometimes if we're only looking where we always looked, we'll only get what we've always got. And so by looking somewhere different, your competition has the same data as you do. So how will you find that one insight for innovation? Sometimes it comes from not just relying on your data and going out and using your intuition. We were tasked by Disneyland Paris to get more people to come more often. Our data told us who could afford Disneyland Paris, who had an affinity to the brand, who was shopping online, who was a 10 out of 10 of I'm coming this year. Well, they hadn't come. So my intuition told me my data was missing something. So we went out to go and live with our consumer for a day. But before we do, so is somewhere around you, do you have a physical photograph of your children?
Somewhere, actually, I have to kind of walk away for a second. Yeah.
Come on then, go get it. Go get
Yeah.
it. Come on.
1 second.
Okay. I'll do a quick dance. Where you go? Hey, everybody. By the way, if you have questions, let Dr. I know so that I can get them because I can't see them on my screen.
I got a lot.
Okay.
We have lots of questions.
So here we are.
Korea.
Okay. So this is your son. What's his name?
His name is Aiden.
Okay. And how old was Aiden the day that photograph was taken?
Probably 6.
6. And how old is he today?
8.
Okay, perfect. You can put the photograph down. Now, if I were to ask everybody who's sitting in and watching, if you were to close your eyes for a moment and see a picture of a physical photograph that you've got of your children somewhere in your house, maybe it's on your bedside table, maybe it's in your family room, and just picture that photograph for just a minute. Now, if I had to ask you how old your children were in that photograph, you'll probably tell me they were 6, and then I'll ask how old are they today, and you might tell me 8, you might tell me 12, you might tell me 16, you might tell me 26. How do I know? Because I know that photograph's in your living room, and I know you have other photographs of your children at a younger age. You can open your eyes. And for those of you who don't have children yet, I know your parents have that dorky one of you in their living room that you wish they got rid of before the boyfriend came around. So our going in hypothesis was if we build it, they will come. Capital investment. So why? Because that's the way we've always done it here. That's our river of thinking. But they weren't coming. So something was telling me there's something wrong. So we went out and we met with 26 families, and we found that on average, when we looked at the photograph of the children on the mantelpiece and we asked how old they were in reality, they were anywhere from 2 years to 22 years older in reality. You thought, what's going on here? Do we not print photographs of our children anymore? Yes, we do. We print photographs of them on graduation day, a wedding day. We still print photographs of our children. So what's going on here? So if you ask parents what they want for their children, at first pass, they will tell you, we want our children to go to kindergarten, junior school, middle school, high school, college, graduate, be happy, healthy, and successful, right? That's what we all want for our kids. Sure it is, yeah. Now you're all lying to me. What we really want is we want them back in that little photo frame as Aiden was just there, where when you walk in the door, you are still Superwoman or Superman, and they come and they run and they grab your legs, and you are still a god in their eyes. And so we thought, gosh, there's something here. Let's push a little harder. We sat down with 5 of the mums, and they told me about 3 bittersweet transitions that take place between a parent and a child. And I'm sorry, I'm about to break your heart 3 times because you haven't gone through any of them yet because Aiden's only 6. But I'm a dad. I can use my intuition. And whilst these mums are telling me the story, I know I can remember each 3 of these bittersweet it's that transition where something happens, you both instantly want to step back, but it's too late and you both know it. I know exactly where I was the day my son was 10. It was in a bedroom. He came around the door this way. He was wearing a navy blue shirt, little brown shorts, nothing on his feet. His eyes were half full of tears. You know, when they're half full and they're just about to cry. And he said, Papa. I was like, what? He said, are you Santa Claus? And boom. In that one split second, imagination, creativity, Batman, Spider-Man, all gone. And what hurt so much was what he'd really said was, I'm not your little boy anymore, Daddy. I'm growing up. Now that hurt. Now, girls, I don't care how old you are, you will not remember this fateful day. You don't even remember this day took place. But when you get off this podcast, I want you to text your dad or call him and ask him the question I'll pose in a minute. You don't even remember it took place. He will answer you in a split second because he knows exactly where he was that day. I know where I was. I was in Kissimmee, Florida. My daughter was on my left-hand side. She was 13, Adriana, and we were walking down the pavement. And it was about 10:30 that Tuesday morning where she dropped my left hand in public for the first time because she didn't want to hold Daddy's hand in public anymore. And so, daughters, you do not remember where you were. Dads do. It is a seminal moment between a father and a daughter. And the last one for us was she graduated from college last year. We used to drive her up and down to college and unpack and pack a third of her room. Well, she just got her first job and moved to Manhattan. We live in Central Florida. And so we flew her up to Manhattan. We put everything in her apartment, got it packed. We cheered, we hugged, and we laughed. And then we cried her eyes out all the way to the airport. And so don't forget, our data told us, if we build it, they will come. But by simply spending a day with a consumer, what we realized was this. Mum does not wake up in the morning worrying about whether or not Disney is going to have new attractions this year. Mum wakes up every morning worrying about how quickly her children are growing up and how she wants to make special memories for them while they still believe, while they still hold my hand, while they're still here. That's a segmented communication campaign, one that drove record sales and turned a very product-centric culture into a consumer-centric culture, where it is now mandatory for every Disney executive to go spend a day working a frontline cast member position in the theme parks. Do not underestimate the power of your intuition. It is a remarkably fast computer.
Wow, that's like sweet stories and really great example. But now as I think about it, so many leaders, they are so on the top, they are so detached from
Bingo.
actually what is going on. That's where, as you mentioned, they gain their innovative, creative ideas that their customers actually want and need. So wow, that's really a great point. Thank you for
So I'm
sharing.
curious. No, thank you. Do you have questions on your screen from people in the audience? Because I
Yes, we
can't see them,
do.
obviously. So do we want
We do
to
have a
address some of
few.
those?
So Lance asked earlier, because you are like you have so much knowledge. I hate to interrupt you. And so Lance joined us live from Australia. Thank you. He asked,
Hello, Les.
what if you are a solo entrepreneur? Like many of my friends join us live. They are one person show.
That's me.
Yeah. So
I'm one of those, Les. I'm with you.
where can people like us gain that really like creative, or there's nobody even to talk to you? So how
Les, here's an offer, mate. And you can take me up on this. Just find me on LinkedIn, Duncan J. Wardle. It's on all my emails, on all my socials. I am hopefully working with a sponsor in Australia to come to Australia later this year, God willing, obviously with everything that's going on at the moment. But the plan is for me to come 2 weeks to Australia and 2 weeks to New Zealand to help not-for-profits in particular and young entrepreneurs as well, and teach a series of one-day workshops on innovation creativity. I'm doing it for free. I'm not charging anybody a penny. But they have to work ideally for a not-for-profit. But Les, send me a note, and providing we go ahead with the tour, obviously, you know what, right now all bets are off. Let's be honest about it. But God willing, I'll be out, and I'd love to shake your hands and buy you a beer and invite you to the workshop.
Oh, that's so sweet. I wish I were in Australia. So everyone, I just shared.
Come and join us.
Duncan's Twitter handle. He's really active on Twitter. You guys can connect with him on Twitter. And so here's another question from Kimberly, and she is an educator like myself. She asked you, what are some future occupations that really stress innovation, creativity that our students need to know about?
So I do some workshops for Yale University, at UNC, at UF. We must now prepare our children for jobs that don't exist yet. So as much as the past has been fantastic and we've taught some phenomenal things, by the way, I'm going to go off to a total aside and then I'll come back and answer your question. The great thing is, teachers, the single most underappreciated, underpaid occupation on the planet, and yet the most important occupation on the planet. And I thank everyone who is a teacher from the bottom of my heart, because you are preparing our children and our world for the future. But if there are some sparks of goodness out of the coronavirus, it is now mum and dad are at home, homeschooling for the first time probably in their lives, and they're only maybe homeschooling one child, maybe two, their own children, God, not even the other ones. And I think you'll find in a few months from now, when we all get back together, they will have a much greater respect for the work that you do. And God bless all of you, and thank you for what you do. But I do think it's about continue to teaching creative problem solving skills. I think there's nothing more important than we can teach our children, because we can't teach them for jobs that don't exist yet. And so I do think creative problem solving skills are probably some of the most important skills we can provide our children with.
What do you think are some like specific professions that are going to gain like popularity over the next 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, I don't know about specific occupations. I can say skill sets, and those are the ones that I talked to early on about, the ones that won't be programmed: creativity, intuition, imagination, and curiosity. But I tell you one thing that is coming, and it's coming fast. It's what I call the death of the marketing economy and the birth of the experience economy. What do I mean by that? Well, here's the thing. Marketing implies the word at, and as we know, one-way relationships don't work. But creating experiences with and for and engaging our consumers, Walt was a genius. Walt never saw Disneyland as anything other than an experience. And here's the importance of this. Fast forward to the year 2020, it is the experience economy. How do we know that? Craft breweries. speakeasy bars, Airbnb. This is a museum of ice cream. People want, this new generation will not buy houses and cars, they're buying experiences. And so if I were to ask you to name some of the most successful shopping malls per square foot on the planet, you would not think to mention Disneyland, Walt Disney World, Tokyo, Shanghai, and Paris Disneyland. But they are, because Walt put an experience first. And so fast forward to the early 2000s, Universal Studios used to be the hard steel ride guy, but then they bought Harry Potter and they realized the value of experience, because if I sell you a Coca-Cola, it's $2.50. But hey, if it's a butterbeer, oh no, it's $8.50. This plastic stick that you wouldn't give me 50 cents for, madam, to you, this is Dumbledore's wand and you will gladly pay $64 plus tax. It's about moving away from marketing at and in creating experiences for. I think the other one that companies need to realize is purpose. What do you stand for? The great thing, Les, and for people like you, is you know what you're doing. You know why you do it, because you get up and you bleed it. It's what you do. You're an entrepreneur and you're passionate about it. But companies without a purpose will lose their way, because Generation Z will not only not buy your products and services if they don't believe in what you stand for, they don't want to work for you. Well, if they don't want to work for you, how will you be relevant 10 years from today? And so people say, oh, well, how does purpose make money? I was asked to give a talk to the world's largest manufacturer of tools, hammers, chisels, saws. And I know nothing about the tool industry, so I thought, how can I find out more about what's important to their consumer? So I went down to 2 big DIY stores in the US, and I watched and listened at the point of purchase. And I went back and talked to them and said, hey, guess what? Generation Z has never heard of your brand, and they're not talking about you. They're not talking about your brand, your products, the hammer, the chisel, or the saw. They don't even talk about the price point. They're talking about what's important to them. We're going to remodel our dream bathroom, our dream apartment. We're going to remodel our dream house. I said, your purpose, if you choose to create it, is you could be the brand who helps people build their dreams. And you can see the finance guys rolling their eyes saying, this guy's nuts. Okay, great. If you're the brand who can help people build their dreams, could you be in sports? Yes. Hospitality? Yes. Entertainment? Yes. Banking? Yes. Insurance? Yeah. You could be in any line of business you choose to be. But today, you make tools, and their definition of innovation isn't its iteration. They're going to expand into Mexico and India because they have a growing middle class, and they will buy our tools. No, they won't. We're printing houses in Houston, Texas today in their entirety on a 3D printer. Amazon spent millions of dollars on shipping last year. It is not in Amazon's interest to continue to spend money on shipping. 15 years ago, you did not have one of these. 15 years from now, I put it to you that 35% of what you buy online, you will print in your living room on a 3D printer. By the way, you want to talk about some positive stories from the coronavirus? There were 2 gentlemen in Italy. There was a hospital that couldn't produce the valves for the ventilators quickly enough. They got in there with their 3D printer and they knocked out 124 valves in less than 20 hours at less than $1 a piece. Now, if you can print anything you want on demand 10 or 15 years from today, what will you be making with a hammer, a chisel, or a saw? You won't. They'll be in a museum. But because they don't have a purpose, they can't see it coming. That is the importance of purpose.
I love it. It reminds me of Daniel Pink. I think he was the person talking about for people to learn anything, mastery, autonomy, and purpose. So he talks about purpose. I so great. Yeah, I really want to respect your time. We still have lots of questions.
But fire away. Fire the questions. No further questions.
Oh, so another question is, I think there's another trend of more people, like organizations, they started to hire people who are very different from educational background, very different from the positions that they are hiring. So do you see that trend as a good thing? And some even recommended that we should eliminate a related field, words such as, So what do you think about that?
Remember when I got you to draw the house earlier on, I talked about the naive expert. The naive expert is somebody who doesn't work for your industry. It gives them permission to ask all the silly questions you can't ask in front of your peers, to throw out audacious ideas. Also, innovation comes from looking outside of your industry. So for example, there's another tool I mentioned earlier on called Where Else? Where in the world has somebody already solved the challenge you've been given? Well, Speedo were tasked by the American Swimming Association by swimmers go faster through water in time for the Sydney Olympic Games in 2000. So they looked around the world and they said, who's already solved the challenge of moving quickly through water? Well, sharks, dolphins, speedboats, and they took a bullnose shark and they did biomimicry on its skin, and they found it has hundreds of thousands of pimples underneath which it contained microscopic air pockets that it could expand as it chooses to increase its surface friction versus the water, slow down, stop and turn, such as the swimmer hitting the wall at the end of the pool and going, or it could force each air pocket out when it wants to move like a bullet. They borrowed back the underlying principle. They created the suit called the shark suit in time for the Olympic Games in Sydney. You saw the USA team wear them from their neck down to their calf muscles. They broke, I can't remember how many world records in Sydney, but it was considered too much of a competitive advantage and too innovative. So I think by bringing people from outside your industry, I think that's a good thing. I do want to say, because I want to get back to the questions that you've got in front of you from the people online, but for anybody who I don't answer your question, just tweet me and I'll respond to you on there as well.
Yeah, I shared. Please make sure. Yeah, so let me share Duncan's Twitter handle again. And here's the website. Make sure you check out so many amazing, great articles. You guys, I was binge reading and love all the blog articles. And so here's the
binge
Twitter
reading.
handle.
That's a new term. I haven't heard. I've heard binge watching. I've never heard binge reading.
I don't know. I just invented. Yeah. So let's make this our last question. So here's a question from Pam, who is an amazing educator like myself, and she agreed with you about teachers who are underpaid and not some teachers not being treated really nicely the way they deserve. And I think the bigger question is that's why also I resigned from my teaching position, which is there is a box. And there, like, you have to do things a certain way, like we're so stuck in the system. And I realized in my case, a better way for me to disrupt the system is actually being outside and build something new without trying to make changes here or there. But because the more I want to change the system is also changing me. So I guess her question is, so how do you see kind of, how can we transform? How can we innovate within this like structure, like within this like existing structure? And
so don't think that belongs only to the teaching profession. It belongs to the architecture profession. It belongs to the legal profession. It belongs to every profession on the planet has structure and it has rules. And that tool I talked about earlier on called What If, where you list the rules of your industry. You pick one and ask, what if that rule no longer existed? And develop new ideas from that. It's a very disruptive tool and can help get you. The other thing is we did the no, because, and the yes and. And I think I would remind people when you're in ideation, when you're pitching an idea, tell them, hey, we're in expansionist session today. We're not green lighting it for execution. We're just greenhousing it together. I want you to respond with yes and you'll be amazed how much more positive they will be to your ideas as you walk in the door.
Totally. I love that. I'm definitely going to use more of that with my own children and my own students. So this has been such a great interview. Duncan, thank you so much for your time and even stay longer. So everyone, make sure I shared Duncan's TED Talk in the comment section. Definitely make sure to check it out. I also share the website link, so check it out and connect with Duncan on Twitter and let him know how much you appreciate him and what a great interview. So thank you so much.
Not as much as I appreciate teachers.
Oh, thank you, and thank you everyone for.
I was the worst. Just for the record, I was the worst student on the planet. The only A I ever got was absent because I didn't show up for the exam.
That's why you're so successful. You know the book, A students work for C students and B students work for the government. So I think it's true, right? Yeah, but that's amazing. It shows how you are thinking. I think, going back to education, I can talk about this forever. Like, it's all about obedience, follow rules, obey rules.
Take another picture of us. Keep going. I'm just taking pictures. Oh yeah, cool.
And it's all about that. Like, I have to do so much unlearn and deconstruction at home, but I'm homeschooling my children very soon. But like, you have to do that type of work. But anyway, thank you very
much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you to everybody who joined us as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Join us live on Friday from all over the globe. I appreciate you guys. I hope to see you guys again next Friday, same time, same location.
God bless. Thank you for everything you do.
Safe.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.